Hey everybody. Today I just have a little bit of a short video for you. If you've seen a lot of the other content that I've put out, you know I do a lot of sort of guide related stuff, a lot of builds, that sort of thing. And you'll probably notice that I haven't really done a lot of uh, build related videos for characters in a while, and that's mostly because I've kind of explored most of the options out there. I'm sure there's a couple other niche ones, but I feel like I've just sort of really covered a lot of the builds that there really are to cover in this game, at least for now. If they decide to update any characters, I'll re-examine them. And it's been brought up a few times in the comments over my videos that a lot of my content focuses on the later stages of the game. So definitely end game very heavily, but a lot of the stuff that I do show in the end game can still be sort of adapted in sort of lesser versions, or at least you can start working towards that once you reach the late game, which for me is around, later parts of Act 3, Act 4. And this is primarily because in the early game, generally you're so restricted on the amount of options you have available to you due to just resources, and it's just a shorter part of the game, unlike the end game where you just do a lot of stuff, so you can cycle through loot pools more. It's easier to look for specific things, so you can more reliably actually build towards something. Early game, it's more or less just you take what you happen to stumble upon, and that's what you end up using. But there is a sort of fairly reliable build, I think, that you can get in the early game, and that's what I wanted to cover. And it's for Mordred, no less. The character that everyone's going to be using, bringing on all the story missions, so having a decent build for him in the early game, I think, could definitely be useful. So, what is this build? Let's get into it. So, this is, like I said, an early game to, maybe starting to creep into the mid game. So I'm talking, definitely Act 1, then, about halfway through Act 2. Once you get farther into Act 2, that starts to get into what I start to really kind of consider the mid game, when you start to use level 10 gear. You can see here I only have level 5 gear because I haven't reached that part of the story yet, even though he is level 11. And if you're playing on higher difficulties, like very hard, especially like the Let's Play I've been doing, you'll notice that some enemies hit really, really hard sometimes. So being able to manage the damage mitigation, reducing the amount of attacks you're taking, and, killing enemies in certain orders so that way they're not dishing out damage back to you, is a pretty important aspect of keeping your heroes healthy so you don't have to stick them into the hospice or the cathedral. And one of the best tools for this is to have attacks soaked up by your defender. But your defender has a limit, right? Mordred, he has a limit. He only takes so many hits before he's going to start being at risk too. But this build, which I've actually been using for my Let's Play, really helps extend this survivability a lot more. And there's basically one type of gear that really enables this, that synergizes with a talent. I'm going to be using this as an example because it has the effect. The Resting Oath Stone of Mending. Regain 1 armor for every 10 HP regained from any source. And this effect here can appear on the armor as well. It was actually on his armor that I had for him previously before I swapped it out for this level 5 armor for the stat upgrade. And I actually held off on that for a while just because the synergy was so strong with this build. So I actually had it where I was regaining 2 armor for every 10 HP I regained. And that basically lets you double up on both, health bars, or defensive bars, whatever you want to group them as. So that way when you're regaining HP, you're also regaining armor. And armor being the damage mitigation, keeping your armor high does a lot for reducing the incoming damage. If you manage to find this effect on a piece of gear and you pick it up, especially if you find 2 pieces of gear that have it to stack, you definitely want to go into unyielding as soon as possible. This makes it so each hit you do regains 3 HP. So Mordred fairly easily can get 3 attacks in a single turn, which is 9 just shy. But, if you have some extra AP from reserving previous turn, I'm pretty sure Shield Charge triggers unyielding as well. So this is just it's not like you're going to be getting a crazy amount of health off of this, but it is something which will in turn be giving you some passive armor regeneration, keeping your Mordred much healthier than normal. On top of that, this also takes into account things like campfires, your health potions, so you can take the health option at a campfire and get armor back as well. You can use health potions instead of having to bring an armor potion and get armor back as well. It's just a lot of different ways where you can just keep your armor up without having to actually take any armor replenishment options. And you'll notice if you keep your armor high, Mordred will stay much, much healthier over the course of your missions. And I've personally noticed that when I was running 2 of these pieces of gear, you definitely want to try to aim for 2. It will make a huge difference, even if it's just 1 armor more. When I was running 2 of these pieces of gear, my Mordred was coming out of every mission in pretty close to pristine condition. You still have to play smartly, don't get me wrong. This isn't just, oh, I'm invincible, I can just eat all the hits I want. If you're playing very hard, you'll still get messed up if you're not careful. But this is definitely a nice little cushion for you to just let yourself be a little bit more aggressive with him, be a little less careful, more willing to just eat an extra hit here or there, because you know that you will basically just get the health back, you'll get the armor back. There's been a couple of times, if you go back and watch my Let's Plays, you'll notice where he'll enter a fight missing some health and missing some armor, and then when the fight finishes, he has all of his health and he has all of his armor. There isn't a whole lot to this. Like I said, it's just sort of a mini build. It's really just a very strong synergy off of the Unyielding talent on top of the armor regain ability off of Pieces Gear. Like I said, Resting Glowstone and Mending is the one I have. I can't remember the name of the armor that I was using it with, but it's not an uncommon thing you'll see come up on Pieces of Gear, so this is one of those things where it's probably a pretty reliable thing you can look out for and use in your playthrough. As you get to higher levels, you'll maybe want to take in Ruthlessness. At that point, you're going to be creeping into the mid-game. And honestly, this is still going to be helpful, but as the numbers start to upscale a bit, you will notice that this effect will become less impactful, become a bit weaker. The enemies are just going to be doing so much more damage where the armor just won't be coming back at a significant enough rate. I hope this was coherent enough and not super rambly, and on top of all of that, helpful. If you're looking for something to just really make your Mordred a bit tankier in the early game, you're struggling a little bit with this, I would highly recommend looking out for this type of gear and picking up that Unyielding talent. I think it may give you just the slight edge you need on your runs to clear them a bit more cleanly. If you watched all of this, thank you. I do appreciate it, and I hope to see you in the next one.